Good. The only problem is we told
my
everybody we're starting at 8. Right. I think we'd catch some heat.
Actually, we don't need to.
Calling to order the Sparta Board of Education meeting at 7 p.m. Vanessa, could you please read the meeting notice?
Sure. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Sparta Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be advertised by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Sparta Board of Education office, 18 Mohawk Avenue, as designated by the Board of Education for posting of such notice in a public place. Written notice was emailed on January 11, 2022 to the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, tapintosparta.net, and to the Township Clerk specifying the date, time, and place of this meeting.
Mrs. Bragg? Mr. McKernan?
Here.
Ms. Sealander?
Here.
Mrs. Collier?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Dr. Serrano?
Here.
Ms. Grano?
Here.
Mr. Morris? Mr. Paleshi?
Thank you. Could we all stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to convene into closed session. Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, provides for the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Sparta Township Board of Education is of the opinion that such circumstances exist to discuss personnel, student matters, and attorney-client privilege, which is exempt from public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Sparta Township Board of Education shall enter executive session on July 21st at 7:02 p.m. The board will reconvene in public session at the conclusion of the executive session. The information discussed during the executive session will be disclosed to the public as soon as it is determined by the board that the information is no longer confidential. Do I need to take a motion?
Yeah.
Could I have a motion? A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Go ahead. Take the title over. Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to head up.
Waiting for one more board member to join us.
The new restaurant. Huh? Good. Expensive. Good. Stop there. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you went there? Yeah, no, what? Very good. Yeah. Sunday has steak. Yeah, 100 foot bar. Nice. Yeah.
I got a pasta on my way home, so I'm nervous. I heard the bar was pretty good.
Yeah, it's nice. Last week was like soft open, now it's open. No kids allowed either. Yeah.
I think it's just pretty open.
Yeah. Well, for a while, and then yeah.
Oh, is it?
I mean, if you want to, they have a steak. They do have a $155 steak on the menu. It's like 60 a day, dry rub, aged, pound
For a $40 burger.
It's not, and it's separate. It's only the,
Right?
yeah,
$40 burger?
yeah. It's like a wagyu black truck.
Yeah.
But I mean, like they have another big brand that's like $20.
Yeah.
You know, all the specialty things are 15s, which are average. Beer 70, yeah, and it's, a lot of it's all like IPA stuff, like craft. Yeah, craft, yeah. Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice in there.
I figured they would do a good job. They've been working on it forever. What, outside section open? Or just the inside thing? They have like that outside.
Yeah, I don't
probably
know.
too hot.
I don't know. I've been there a couple times.
Yeah.
I'd go there, man. Just want to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think they have, I think it's out there.
No, yeah. Probably
You
not.
can if you have. It's all set up.
Maybe it's too hot.
Yeah.
Resolved that the Board of Education closes executive session and enters back into public portion of the meeting at 8:45. Roll call, please.
Ms. Bragg? Mr. McKernan?
Here.
Ms. Sealander?
Here.
Ms. Collier?
Here.
Ms. Miller?
Here.
Dr. Serrano?
Here.
Ms. Grano?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Okay, great. Moving on to approval of minutes. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thanks, Wendy. Second?
Second.
Vanessa. Roll call.
Ms. Bragg? Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Beck.
Yes, thank you. I would like to start by once again welcoming Joanne Black, who now is sitting at the table. I welcomed her aboard when she was approved. Ms. Black started with us on July 1st and has been doing a great job transitioning into our district. And like I said before, we welcomed her before, but now we're going to welcome her to the board table. Next, I would like to talk about the Alpine Elementary principal. So on tonight's addendum, you will see that Mr. Peter Miller has been recommended to assume the role of principal of Alpine Elementary School. The Sparta school community is very familiar with Mr. Miller, as he has served as a vice principal in our district for quite some time. The principal search process was quite thorough as the position was posted for, and we received quite a few applicants with a variety of backgrounds and experiences. An interview committee was formed that consisted of teachers and a parent from Alpine School, as well as central office and building administrators. 9 applicants were interviewed in the first round, and 4 finalists were interviewed in the second round. In the end, it was Mr. Miller's experience in Alpine Elementary School, as well as his commitment to the district and established rapport with staff and the school community that set him apart from the other candidates. I'd like to welcome Mr. Miller to his new role, and I look forward to continuing to work with him in the principal capacity. With Mr. Miller moving to the principal position on August 1st, Mr. Leone will then be released from our district at the end of the month and can begin his new role as superintendent of Roseland School District. Mr. Miller and Mr. Leone will continue to work together to ensure a smooth transition. And I would like to once again thank Mr. Leone for his years of service to our district and wish him the best of luck in his next chapter. Additionally, with Mr. Miller's move, the vice principal position will become immediately vacant at Alpine School. On this evening's addendum, you will see my recommendation to appoint Ms. Katie Madsen, formerly Ms. Arbolino, to the position of interim vice principal at Alpine. Ms. Madsen will work alongside Mr. Miller beginning August 1st in that role until the position is posted and permanently filled. But I felt that it needed to be filled immediately with an individual familiar with the district to continue and ensure that we can open the school well and in a timely manner. With Ms. Madsen's appointment, Ms. Casa will expand her current role of the 6 to 12 math supervisor to now include K to 5 math on an interim basis, until the aforementioned interim situation is completed. So I hope we could all follow that confusing roadmap. But the bottom line is we have experienced administrators stepping into roles in the district level and on the Alpine school level that will ensure continuity and, again, continue with established rapport and comfort in the school community. I'm highly confident in all these administrators and our entire administrative team as we continue to perform and on a high level and to continue to move our district forward. On an athletic note, something pretty cool here. Cole Patton, who was the class of 2018, was drafted by the Detroit Tigers as pick 507 in the 2022 Major League Baseball draft. We're proud of Cole as he continues to make our Spartan community proud. And an update on capital projects. The paving path to the track, as you can see, it's on tonight's agenda to approve the paving of the track, the path that leads from the football field to the track. Once again, our township and our Board of Education in partnership was able to work on this project. And by the township performing this work, they are able to save the school district and ultimately the taxpayer a significant amount of money. That project will begin. We're just waiting on DEP approval. Once we get DEP approval, that project will begin, that paving project. Speaking of township board partnership and speaking of paving projects, the lighted path that connects the high school campus to Station Park, that project is complete. If you have a chance to check it out, you'll see the great job that our township did in paving and lighting that path. It's definitely cleared out, and they did a really good job with it. More paving as an update. The middle school, as you saw when you came in, and the Helen Morgan School paving projects are complete. Both schools now have fresh blacktop and paint on portions of their respective parking areas. Next up will be the front of Mohawk Avenue School and a basketball court project in the back of Mohawk Avenue School. The handicap lifts at Sparta High School and Helen Morgan School are now fully completed and operational. And all regular summer cleaning and maintenance in our buildings is moving along, and we look forward to welcoming our students and staff back in just over 5 weeks, believe it or not. That is the update. I will now turn it over to Ms. Rossi for a brief update on the curriculum and instruction front.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to just provide you some quick updates. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
I can.
Okay, sounded quiet. On the health and phys ed front, we are working and finalizing curriculum updates, and I did want to follow up from our community forum that took place last month. Our goal has been and continues to be focused on handling this curriculum and the content included in a reasonable and considerate way, where families are partnering with our local district and our stakeholders to to ensure that there are choices provided that allows everyone the freedom to select what makes the most sense for their families. Specifically, a request was presented to provide access to a draft curriculum before it was put out. We discussed this, and we will be providing a draft curriculum. So that isn't something that we've done before, but we do think and we recognize the importance of being transparent and providing as much information as possible so that families can make informed decisions. That will be provided to you first to the board by the first week in August, and then to the community the second week in August. So you'll have all of that information to look through. That will contain specific resources, which was one question that was brought up. And there'll be a list, a compilation of resources used for all lessons, including and distinguishing family life lessons that are within the health unit. We will also be considering the language we use. Language is important, and it articulates and expresses an overall feel for what we're trying to achieve in a community. We are going to choose to use an inclusive language, so we won't be using words like opt-out or opt-in, but we will provide families with options. And those options include participation in family life lessons or participation in extended health lessons. There will be a parent night that we'll host in September, and that parent night will kind of replicate what Nurse Lil was able to do when she presented alongside of us at the community forum in June, where she sampled what it would sound like to instruct and present sensitive material as they do through their lessons in the health curriculum. So there'll be a specific night for that, and if that's something that you're interested in attending to get specific information on what lessons sound like when presented to students, we thought that that was a success as well. Moving on, I just wanted to share some of the work that we've been doing with our multi-tiered system of supports. We were very fortunate this year to work with a consultant group through the Linkit organization, and we conducted a needs analysis of our district support system. There were several strengths noted and also areas of attention. Many of those areas we are already working towards, so that was something we felt was productive. It included review of data and resources that were compiled, including staff surveys, multiple focus groups, and presentations from staff and leadership within the district. We will be presenting not only on the results of that needs analysis, but also on our overall approach to providing support services to students in an October Parent Academy. That's all. Thank you.
Moving on to number 11 of the agenda, approval of HIB report. Can I get a motion to move? Oh, wait, hold on.
You can do the first one and then you can that.
Okay.
Why don't we
Can I
do
get a motion?
11.1 first?
Okay. Can I get a motion to move 11.1?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
I'll give it to you, Jen. That's fine. Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Bragg? Yes. Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes. Okay.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Okay. We're also going to add 11.2, a resolution that our attorney will read.
Resolved that the board affirms the finding of HIB in case number HMS 03232-2001 heard during this evening's executive session, and be it further resolved that the parents should be provided with a written decision informing them of the board's determination and their right of appeal to the Commissioner of Education.
Motion. Get a motion. Could I get a?
You can move it.
Okay. Can I get a motion to move 11.2?
Motion.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Bragg? No. Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Abstain.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
you. Moving on to delegate and liaison reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? No? No one? Okay. Moving on to public comments number 1. This is for action items only. Public comments are invited on matters pertaining only to action items at this time. Please state the action item number as well as your name, municipality, and group affiliation if appropriate for the record. Each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. There will be a countdown timer. You will be notified when there is 1 minute remaining and then again when the time is up at the end of 3 minutes. Speakers may not cede their time to others. The board uses the public comment period as an opportunity to listen to citizens' concerns, but not all issues brought to the board meeting will be resolved this evening. Rather, the board will, in appropriate cases, delegate the authority to investigate the matter of to the superintendent or his designee. The board does not endorse your comments, nor will the board be held liable for comments you make about a staff member or other person which they may consider defamatory and or slanderous, as that individual retains all rights to pursue any legal remedies against you. This public session is designed for members of the public to speak on issues for board consideration. By law, the Board of Education is under no obligation to respond to public comment. Issues raised by members of the public may or may not be responded to by the board at the conclusion of public participation. This portion of the meeting is meant to hear public comment, not to have a dialogue between the board and the person speaking. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking and not disrupt the meeting, or you may be asked to leave. All statements should be directed to me as the presiding officer, and no one may address board members individually. Is there anybody for public comment number 1? No. Okay. I want one. No. Can I get a motion to close public comment number 1, please?
Motion.
Thank you, Kurt. Do I need a second? A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 15, personnel and policy. Looking to move 15.1 to 15.31 plus the addendum 1.01 to 1.02.
And I have an administrative revision for, on the appointments. I would like to revise the start date of Melanie Hunt, revise it from 8/1/22 to 9/1/22.
Can I have a motion? Motion. Thank you, Kim. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Jen. Discussion?
On the addendum, the first item is 1.01, and it, I think if we renumbered it to 15.33, it would be in line with all the... You can't hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. All the personnel and policy items are in the 15s. They're not, if you
Right.
do 1.01, it'll duplicate an earlier motion.
Okay.
So really,
15.33.
the additional personnel appointments that Dr. Beck spoke about in the earlier portion of the meeting should be 15.33. And then I don't think we have to take a separate vote, right, Mark? I mean,
No, as long as it's...
yeah, so we don't have to take that second vote. So we just revise that to 15.33. And then,
Okay.
just while we're talking about it, the one on the back for finance
Do the same.
should be 7.26.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
7.26. Okay. Okay. So do I have to say them again? Okay. Cannot, we got the motions. All right. Discussion is over. Okay. Roll call.
Ms. Bragg?
Yes.
Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Brano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to curriculum. Looking to move 16.1 to 16.14. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thanks, Vanessa. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Jen. Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Bragg? Yes. Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
And Mr. Morris?
Yes.
All right, moving on to finance. All right, to make sure I get this right. Looking to move 17.1 to 17.26.
Yep.
Okay. Could I get a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Patrick. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Vanessa. Discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Bragg? Yes. Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes to everything, abstain from 7.23.
17.
I'm sorry, 17.23.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes to everything, abstained from 17.23.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Okay, operations, looking to move 18.1. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Jen. A second?
Second.
Thank you.
Huh? Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Bragg? Yes. Mr. McKernan?
Yes.
Ms. Sealander?
Yes.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Yes.
Ms. Grano?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Thank you. Moving on to number 19, any old business anybody would like to discuss? You guys are very quiet tonight.
I'm not sure where this falls in. I just wanted to parry off of Mrs. Rossi's comments concerning the health and PE curriculum that you'll be sharing with us. First, I'd like to thank you personally for spending as much time with me as you did and bringing me up to speed and then some and sharing your expertise with me. I really appreciate that. I think, and then I know you did that with other people as well, but thank you very much. You just mentioned inclusive language, and this is something that you had mentioned to me when we spoke about saying options as opposed to opt out. And could you just repeat? So options would be in family life, or another option would be in, what did you call it?
Right, so the options will be that a family can choose to participate in the family life lessons or the extended health lessons, which I described in the community forum it as, so basically wherever that health unit left off, so the last thing that was taught before moving into the family life portion of the unit, so let's just say it was nutrition, or let's say it was health services, community health services. Whatever the last thing that was taught by the teacher in the unit, the students will then continue to learn more about that subject in different ways and will not be a part of the family life lessons that include some of the sensitive content that people are, expressing some different opinions on.
Right. A lot of opinions.
Yeah.
So, do you know at this point who will be pulled out or who would stay in the classroom? Does it depend on the response?
Yeah, it really is like some of those decisions and kind of formal interactions are going to be operational. So there will be, our hope is that similar to how when you go onto Genesis to kind of log in for the first time in the school year and you have different forms to fill out, there will be a place, and it will, we're trying to figure out what that form would look like exactly or how you would respond, but that would have those choices there, so you could make a decision. You could then change your decision later, if you're still gathering information and you need time to decide. But basically that would give us really early on in the school year a good sense of what the numbers look like. And so we would be supporting students in learning environments that are conducive to size and numbers.
Okay. one of the options, I don't know what to call it an option, but one of the discussions that we had, we were talking about all the different highly sensitive subjects in the grade bands. And one of them, we were talking specifically about the grade 2 and identifying body parts lesson, and how that will be a home shared lesson, I think is
Right,
a
so
shared
it'll be
lesson?
called a shared lesson,
Okay.
where there'll be 4 key parts to that lesson. It will be, the identification of students' body parts, reproduction, appropriate or inappropriate touch, and a trusted circle of adults.
Okay.
Those will send speaking points home to families in case that's helpful for them, and then they can make decisions about how they want to approach that, if they want to use the speaking points or if they don't. And then almost like a flipped lesson, which is a common strategy in classrooms. When students come back in, we will pick up only focusing on keeping hands to yourself, which is basically touch, inappropriate touch, which is what we always teach, especially in a phys ed classroom, and also just the concept of a circle of trusted adults, not who that circle of trusted adults is, but just that it's important that everyone has adults that they can go to when things are challenging.
Okay.
So we will not be, as educators, taking ownership for
Right.
the other 2
That will go to the-
concepts that will be
that will
recommended
be to the
for at
family.
home. Right.
Okay, so when we were talking about that, and we were talking about the language opt-in and opt-out, one of the things I had mentioned to you is like, and I'm just going to make this bare bones. It's like a yes or no, right? Like, yes, I want my kids participate in this, or no, I don't. And one of the things I discussed with you was, could we make all of these across all grade levels shared lessons?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you get to grade 8, goes to a whole different subject, and there may be families, it doesn't matter the grade. It applies to all grades, but could there be an option where the lesson is shared, because there are families who want the information shared, but maybe don't feel that they want somebody else to do it, or that their child isn't ready yet. Is sharing across the board an option that we could consider?
Sure. So some of the things that we talked about were so specifically at that 2nd grade level, because that's the very first time any content like that, was included in the standards.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was collectively decided that it will only be a shared lesson. Parents can still choose to have an extended, participate in an extended health lesson, even though the content that we'll be talking about in school doesn't reflect the content, that matches the standards in the way that the social and sexual health standards are written. So at the 2nd grade level, that's kind of a very different approach, because we've never addressed content like that, and just developmentally in a gym setting, in a gymnasium, and
Right.
because it's an infused curriculum, that will be pretty much like the only way that that's approached. In the other grade levels, with the options that exist, the family life lessons, and then the other option of the extended health lesson, one of the recommendations or suggestions that was provided is that even if a child selects to participate in the extended health lesson, might it be feasible to send some talking points home to the family, so that if they choose to participate in that conversation and just need some guidance, that then they have the opportunity to do that instead of it being in a school setting. And so that's something that we're talking about as a curriculum team. The teachers that I'm working with are exemplary, and I think that's definitely something that's feasible, that we can continue to generate to support families.
I would really just appreciate if you continue to consider that as an option. As the grade bands go up, the subject matter obviously gets much more
mature.
Right. That's a great word. And and I'm often at a loss of words with you when I discuss this because, you know, it is so descriptive at
Sure.
times. So if you would just please consider
Definitely.
the sharing option
Yep.
for all of the grade bands, I would appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else for old
Tara,
business?
if-
Okay.
Have any teachers came out, or if they do come out, saying they don't feel comfortable teaching it to children that aren't their children? Would they have the option to opt out to not to teach it if they don't feel comfortable talking about this stuff to kids that aren't theirs?
Yeah, that's an interesting consideration. A lot of the teachers, especially at the secondary level, so I think, you know, some of the dialogue and discussion and the concerns have existed just with new content at the elementary level and what that means for our younger population. Beyond second grade, which we just talked about, which is why we really kind of took an innovative approach to that, a lot of this content is content that teachers in some ways have been kind of exposed to or have been, you know, the teachers, what I'll tell you, what Kim and I talked about or what we talked about today in our session, is that because they're trained health professionals, you know, physical education and health professionals, these conversations are much more like normalized. This is what they've been trained to do, and they are really comfortable having these conversations and sharing their feedback through, again, that kind of like clinically based sort of safety education approach. And so so for them, even though, you know, just like when you look at a different, like a math curriculum, there's a new concept added, but like we've always been teaching multiplication, so it's not, you know, it might be a new strategy, but it's something that we're familiar with and that we've been trained on. And my observation so far has been that that's their approach, that, you know, this is their craft and this is where their experience lies and their expertise. So, you know, even where you see some subtle differences and some changes, they've been teaching about, you know, of the vast majority of the standards for a long time now. So I haven't experienced that yet, but, you know, every road we cross is just a new opportunity to reconsider the needs of everyone within the district. So
Would that be explored if a teacher wanted to opt out? I mean, because I know they're trained, but it's a completely new area we're going into, and I don't really think you can compare this new health standard and, you know, masturbation to a new math curriculum.
yeah, sure. No, I'm not
You know, it's
comparing
not-
the
I
two.
mean,
Yeah, I know what you mean. And just to clarify, so we aren't teaching that topic. That was an example that could have been taught. But I know there's, you know, I want to just be really clear on all of those things because there is confusion and sometimes, you know, misinformation that's shared in different venues. So that is not something we will be teaching at all anywhere. But certainly if teachers express concerns, and teachers have been, our health and PE teachers, again, I haven't had the experience working with them like this before, but they really are true inspiring professionals and they take their work really seriously. They've been extremely considerate and forthcoming with their ideas and opinions, and it's been a true collaborative effort. So I would absolutely engage in a conversation if a teacher had concerns. And, you know, we've talked about that, so I think they know I'm very open to.
Would we give them the option as we're giving the parents the option?
I'd have to explore that. It's not something we've done before, is asking teachers, you know, if they have an option to teach their content standards, but we can explore whatever recommendations or questions we have. Sure.
I have one more question as far as operationally how it will look. I guess you can't make those decisions until you know how many kids are choosing which path they want to go. But for a lack of a better analogy, is it going to look something more like you're going to art class and you're going to music class versus like you're staying here and you three are getting pulled out here, just to make sure that it does feel inclusive?
Yeah, we're going to make sure that prior to the lesson, like, it won't be removing students from the classroom and, you know, addressing it in a way that, okay, we're going to start now so you three can leave. Although what I will say is students come in and out of the classroom for a variety of different services and supports, whether it's gifted and talented or intervention services, speech. So the notion of students coming in and out is commonplace, but, you know, having the notification of the choice selected by the families will allow us to prepare for that, ahead of time and to have those conversations without, quote unquote, removing them in front of their peers.
Tara, one thing that came up in our discussion today was about that there's a lack of resources really available for a number of these standards that are going about uncharted territory. Obviously, sensitive, potentially explicit content, and then also that can butt against some of the bona fide beliefs of people in our community as well. So what are we doing in those areas where those resources maybe will be provided or changed throughout time? Is that going to be updated in Atlas? Like, we're going to see the draft, but if there's changes throughout the year, how do parents know what is actually going to be used in terms of videos or text for that matter? And then further, I just want to make sure in our options, I do support what Kim has proposed about having that shared lesson at all bands, because I do think at the higher levels, there are still some areas where parents may still want a lot of the content that we're already doing within the 2014 standards, but that some of the 2020 editions could be problematic or maybe something that they would like to have at home.
Yeah, sure. So in certain places we found that we're just gathering new materials, and so in some places we're trying to find materials, which is what's been taking longest. I know that at the community forum there was a lot of information presented, but some of the information that was most important is like exactly what resources are being used. So understandably that's taking the longest amount of time because we're all vetting those resources really carefully, to make educated decisions based on, our trained professionals. And in some cases where there's not a resource available or not a resource that we feel is adequate right now, it's not always necessary to have a resource. So sometimes things, especially like in Helen Morgan, so in grades 4 and 5, those lessons are like 1 to 2 day lessons. So some of that content is delivered through like oral discussion and, a back and forth communication. So there's not, health textbooks really that are utilized, especially at that early elementary level or at the elementary level at all. And so I don't feel that people don't have the tools they think they need. They just are looking different, and that we're being just open-minded and critical of what we're choosing to pull versus what we're choosing to speak on, where a video is appropriate versus where an article fits better. And so that's, the intensive work that teachers engage in regularly regardless of the content, but of course specifically for the content of this nature, we're just being mindful, considerate, and cautious and timely in terms of making those choices. But those will all be available for you as they're finalized in every grade level.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. New business? No? Okay. Moving on to public comment number 2. I'll spare you the long essay, but just, you have 3 minutes. You can talk on any topic. You'll get the 1-minute warning, and make sure you state your name, municipality, and group affiliation, please. Okay, just sign in.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you all for your time.
Just your name, please.
Lee McMichael.
Thank you.
25 Tennis Terrace. So I'm here tonight mostly as a parent, but my background is a teacher, a psychology major, and also a fierce defender and ally for the LGBTQIA community, as I have friends, family, and neighbors who identify as such. And on that note, I did attend the Always Jane screening during Pride last month. I thought it was wonderful. Brought me to tears, made me laugh. It was great and very well done. So after previewing that and coming here, I went home and I decided to go on to the Diversity Council portion of the website maintained by Sparta Public Schools. And I was going through the suggested reading list, and I came upon Mr. Kircher's list of books. And I went ahead and purchased one of those books and got to reading it. And I came upon content which I will not share since there are children in the room. But this is a book that is suggested and recommended to everyone in the district, regardless of age, irrespective of their parents' positions on such matters. And the content kind of took my breath away. I had a really hard time eating lunch, just thinking of the fact that this is a link to an external web page called librarything.com. And that's kind of like the Facebook of book lists. And so you can interact with other adults. You can see other adults' wish lists and books that they love and they read. And the book that I'm referencing is entitled Queer, The Ultimate LGBT Guide for Teens. And the least of my concern was the pieces that spoke to the LGBT community. It was the sexual content, explicit, vulgar sexual content, which I, again, will not read.
1 minute.
So my question, Ms. Grano, is as the curriculum committee chair, are these vetted by the committee? Did you sign off on these? Our super of curriculum, are you reading all these books? There are 51 books on his list. I only read one chapter of one book, and that's my question. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Intended this guy,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, we'll respond to questions at the end.
Now we're stuck with him.
Hi, Christina Karinas, 27 Cherokee Court. I'm not going to not read the stuff that I saw in there today. So if there's any kids, I'd suggest they leave. This is something in our school library, so I am going to read it.
There are young kids in the audience, and I asked
And my
for
young
you-
kid is in the school district, and
That's
I don't
fine.
want them reading this either. Can they leave
I
so
don't
I
know
can
what you're
share it
about
on
to
the-
read, but it's not fair to make young children leave a board meeting. It's a public meeting, and if the content is not appropriate for the grade level, I'm asking you now to read it.
But is it appropriate for the school,
There-
period?
I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know what you're about to read, but keep in mind certain content is for certain older grade levels, certain content is for certain younger grade levels. There's very young children here in the audience. And I ask out of respect that you not read it.
So out of respect, we can't read it, but you could teach it to our children. Is that what we're saying?
I've made my request. I'm not going to argue.
Okay, then I won't read it. But to answer your question, because I did have a meeting with Ms. Rossi, the teachers were uncomfortable. She told me.
Next.
Good evening. Brad Prohl, 14 Crows Lane, Sparta. Just in 1985, my family moved to Sparta, and in 1986, I was fortunate to be enrolled in the Sparta Public Schools. I still remember being enrolled in the afternoon kindergarten class with Miss Barbado and Helen Morgan. I'm proud to say that as I look back at my kindergarten class pictures, I'm one of the few students that did my entire career through this district. During my time here, I can't remember all the amazing memories because there were so many, but some of the best were from first grade, Mrs. Paddock's class. I actually got to go to the principal's office for not being a good student. Third grade, Mrs. Newman's class. We got to write the soldiers at Desert Storm War, and actually till this day, I got a letter back and I still talk to that soldier. Fifth grade, Mr. Predmore's class. He actually gave me a love for the outdoors. He was such a nature guy. It was awesome. In seventh grade, I got to work on an awesome Mother's Day project, and I made a potting bench with the awesome shops teachers that we have here. Eighth grade, I was the unlucky grade that got forced to overcrowding, and we were forced to go to the high school instead of enjoying our top of the class in the middle school. September of ninth grade, the first day of gym at Station Park Fields, I broke my shin playing soccer and was in a cast for 5+ months, but managed to make the golf team in the spring and started on the JV team. Sophomore year, I joined DECA with Mrs. Smith, and participated in state and regional competitions for business. Junior year, I started my first varsity golf match and won. Senior year, I was fortunate enough to help lay the groundwork for what you now call the Sparta School Store. All made possible by this great learning community and educators that we had. After college, my wife and I started our lives outside of Sparta with the hope of one day bringing our kids back to this great district. 5 years ago, we had that chance. We enrolled our daughter into Sparta School. She did amazing. If it wasn't for Miss Cronin, she would not have a passion for school and a love for reading today.
1 minute.
As I stand here today, I can no longer continue to have my daughter in this district. As a parent, I cannot sit back and let this new curriculum that you, Dr. Beck, and Mrs. Rossi are allowing to even be considered. It is not a mandated curriculum, and the State Board of Education has no place to put that curriculum in our thing. As a board, you had a chance to stand up weeks ago to not offer tenure to Mr. Kircher, and you failed the students, and you didn't protect them. Your mission statement, you have failed your mission statement. By tenuring Mr. Kircher and seeing what he is promoting as good literature to read in this district and adopting the new health curriculum is not living up to that mission by creating a healthy and learning environment, nor this is a necessary part of the state core curriculum standard, and you should be ashamed that we're at this point as a district. I'm sorry that you didn't get to hear the graphic material, but I encourage you all to read it.
Hi guys, Jen Hamilton, 37 Holland Circle in Sparta. I just wanted to come up here and take a quick minute to thank Ms. Rossi for your incredibly thoughtful and well thought out discussion about a topic that clearly has raised a lot of concerns amongst a lot of people in the community. I know it wasn't an easy task to kind of take that on. It's a divisive topic. There are people who are going to fall on both ends of the spectrum. I think you probably more than most have seen that, but I think all of us in the community have felt that divisiveness and that polarization of this particular topic. But there are parents in the community who want their kids to have the full range of public education that has always been offered, the health curriculum that has always been available in schools, parents who want their kids to learn about LGBTQ issues, and who want kids who fall into those categories to see themselves in that curriculum and know that they're not alone and that they too have a place and a path in life and what that may look like for them. So I appreciate that you are offering options to the student body and to the parents. I appreciate that those options are going to allow parents to choose what their kids are going to be exposed to in a way that doesn't call out one or the other, but rather creates a scenario where students are in a situation where they're going to be comfortable. And I just appreciate the work that you have done here, so I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dana Galino, 26 Valley View Trail. I just wanted to get up here and just clear up some things. I don't recall Mr. Kircher being a sex education teacher and being involved in the curriculum. So I just want to clear that up, that Mr. Kircher and his tenure is completely separate from the sex education curriculum that has not yet been developed. For those who maybe don't do a lot of research or do a lot of reading, it might be a little confusing when we're listening, but two separate issues. With regards to the sex education standards, I've been doing a lot of research, and I've been I've been in contact with Dr. Carrick and with And I've read the statement that Dr. Ellen McMillan presented on May 4th. And from what I understand, these standards, they're from New Jersey. They come down from Trenton. They, what's great about them is that they give each district the opportunity to sort of create their curriculum and make sure that the children get the education that they need and meet the standards by the end of every school year. And so what we as a board probably need to maybe reiterate to some of the people that get up and ask you guys to, like, you know, make changes or whatnot, is that you don't have control over the standards. You hired a superintendent who oversees a very educated and experienced staff, and they create the curriculum. And then I haven't seen the curriculum yet, so I don't really know why we're fighting or arguing over a curriculum that I don't believe has been presented. But when it's presented, according to the statement from the state, the parents and the teachers and the board, everyone can kind of put their 2 cents in. But at the end of the day, the standards that the state sends down have to be met. And so if you have a problem with the sex education standards, coming to our board is probably not going to get you where you need to be. You might want to take it to a level that's maybe on the state level. And then once the curriculum is provided, we'll all have a chance to sort of, you know, say our piece. But if we're going to trust the process, we vote for the board members who put a superintendent and an assistant superintendent in place to oversee the administrators and the staff and the supervisors whose job it is to create curriculum. And I think we really just need to really trust the process. And so I just want to say thank you for working on the process and for giving us a chance when it's appropriate for us to sort of come in and talk about the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Walter Knapp, Sparta. I was going to comment tonight, but I couldn't help myself after I saw how there was a little bit of apoplectic reaction to the fact that information that's available to all students, regardless of grade level, people didn't want that to be read out because there's children here. The ones that have access to that same information that can read it. It's just absolutely insane what's going on at this point. You know, talked about the state standards, the lady just before. You don't have to follow the state curriculum. You rate yourselves on the QSAC. You don't have to follow what the state's doing. There's no need to introduce the stuff that you're going to introduce to these children. I can't believe we're at this point that this is something that's actually being discussed in the school systems. And again, I was sitting there laughing at how quickly you reacted to the material that was going to be read when this is the material that's being pushed out to the children. So I'll help you think about that. Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Gilmorton, 188 Alpine Trail. Thank you. With all this unbelievable, disgusting education that our children are being indoctrinated with, I don't want to hear about how it makes everyone welcomed, because there's a lot more children in the school district with autism. What's being done to make them feel welcomed and included in everything? Because they're not. They're not. My grandson is a junior this year and has been through Sparta from pre-kindergarten. And nothing. When he was being streamlined, you put him with 15 adults in one day, every day, changing so that he would be failed. But you're not including them. So why are you indoctrinating our children? You are mixing faith and government again. You're teaching our kids things that in our faith we find to be sinful. That is not, it's not your duty to do that. That's something that parents should be talking to their children about. It's not up for teachers or for Phil Murphy to decide what's taught in our classes as far as sex education. I mean, I truly feel that, yes, children need to know about sexual diseases, and they do need to know about pregnancy, but we do not need to take them down this rabbit hole and confusing them.
1 minute.
They are young, and especially now bringing this down into the lower grades in elementary school. Why are we confusing them like this? Let them have their childhood. Stand up. I mean, the Board of Education certainly stood up against parents. The 2 times they voted against the field across the street, you found the money to take care of getting that field, even though twice, 2 elections, it was voted down. So I say if it means losing some money from Trenton, then maybe you could find the same money that you found for across the street at the high school. But you can't keep indoctrinating the children like this. They have a right to an innocent childhood. And it's just sad. It's sad. God bless you people.
Hello, my name is Dr. Frida Lewis, Sparta, New Jersey. The only thing I wanted to make a comment on, what I'm concerned about is the shared lesson plan. We don't share physics, we don't share history. I just don't think there's a place for that because it's a slippery slope. When you start to, whatever, I'm here to learn the process, I'm here to support in what the students need to be educated in, but you can't start to choose what students are being taught on a high school level, because history can be very different in everyone's home, and there's a certain level of public education. We are here for public education. There's certain things that need to be taught, and they need to be taught with truth, and they need to be taught there, and that's in many different areas. Sparta, I thought, especially in middle school, when it comes to language arts and when it comes to the history classes, have been excellent in middle school. I have been quite impressed as a person of color in Sparta with what our education is doing. But when we start talking about, and I understand a shared lesson in 2nd grade, but as we get to middle school, there are certain things that are in our society that children need to learn about. And if we start to do it with this, then you'll have people coming up saying, oh, I don't want this taught in history class. Oh, I don't believe the world starts like this. Oh, I don't believe, for whatever personal beliefs people have, this is a public education system. And then you bring your kids home and you say, no, this is how I need to discuss it that way. So I just wanted to give my opinion on that. I understand in the lower levels, but as we get to the middle school and the high school, sometimes parents are not aware and are not educated enough to give their students that information. So it's just a very slippery slope, and I'm asking you to be very careful about that because we can be up here for every subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment number 2? Okay. I close it, right? Motion to close?
Yeah, she's in the middle of the motion. Yeah, she made a motion. We need a second.
Second.
She wants to comment on public.
No, I know, but we gotta close the public
And then
participation
discuss.
first.
I will give you first or second motion, whatever you need.
Second.
I need 2.
I'll take one.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Now, Kim talk. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm clear for takeoff?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm told.
So if I just pulled up the book that you brought up, and I'm going to ask Dr. Beck and Mrs. Rossi to please take a very close look at this book. It does not, I am a full-on supporter of LGBTQIA+. This is not about that. It's not about gender whatsoever. There is a chapter in this book that is so explicit. It includes material that I took in a sex ed class in college. It was a requirement back in the day. And Mark, you and I have a long relationship, so I'm going to ask you to trust me on some of the things I'm about to say, and I will take into account your children are here, Neve.
Don't worry about it.
No, I really, because it's the chapter is called The Big S, Queer Sex. And then it just goes into a very detailed description of what queer sex is. Are you ready for it? Starting solo, perhaps maybe you should start solo on the act before you, and I'm really trying hard to keep it high. What does it mean to lose your virginity? What does it mean to be de-virginated in the queer community? This could literally be written for cisgender students. It's not about, for me, it's not about the queer component whatsoever. It's about that this material is accessible by a few clicks from our students, and it goes into very explicit detail. I'm really having a hard time saying these words. And what's unfortunate, we've never been in a place before that. Listen, I happen to know your children. It could be two children out there that I don't know, and I wouldn't want to expose them. When I spoke earlier, addressing Mrs. Ross, I had some questions to follow up on our conversation. I didn't know that she was going to do a summary. I'm glad she did. And then I thought, well, let me just follow up in public. I was literally watching everything I said because I was afraid to talk about what they talk about in the grade 5 band or the grade 8 band, because I don't know if, if you're comfortable with that. I don't know where you stand on it. This chapter, it does get into transmitted infections, which is, I know, how we are, Mrs. Rossi, we're bringing in our grade 8 band subject matter through sexually transmitted disease. This does align with that. STI or STD goes into very high-level detail. And then it goes into transgender people and sex. And then it goes into a very detailed listing of safer sex. There is an entire page dedicated to lubrication. I would love to be saying out loud what's on here, and I'm sorry, Mark, that and I'm trying to keep it high level, and I think you haven't interrupted me yet, but it talks about one-night stands and the ramifications of that, how they're okay for some people, and some people prefer not to have them. Talks about consent. So there's certainly, in my opinion, some good information in here, but on the whole, this section on pornography is no curriculum I didn't sign off on anything that included a book that talks about pornography or lubrication or, you know, the many different types of sex. So I'm asking the two of you to please, there is a section in here about size doesn't matter. I'm furious. I am furious that this is a link on our website that our children can access. And I'm sorry to lose my temper. It's not like me. I haven't done it at the table. But, like, and this isn't about the standards, really. It truly isn't. This is about a book that right now is being recommended to our students. And I don't know how it got there. And I would ask that it immediately be removed until it's vetted by Mrs. Rossi, you as the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and you, Dr. Beck, and it is reviewed by the Curriculum Committee. But
so I just was doing some research as we were talking because I want to be clear about where it lives, and we can have any conversations and review anything that you're requesting. It is a link that talks about diverse books that are on our shelves. So these books are on the shelves of the high school media center.
Right.
They were curated by the media center specialists, and they're not in the curriculum, but it is a title in the high school library, and only the high school library, which just means, in terms of access, it's not something accessible to any of our younger children.
And I appreciate you confirming that. That's very important. I am still furious that this falls outside of anything we've ever discussed in a curriculum meeting that I attended anyway. I haven't seen any notes recently from the current
No,
committee.
this could have been, and I will find out, this could have been a book in our library for a very long time.
And that may be. I'm just like,
sure.
And I can't stress enough, this is not about LGBTQIA+. This is about material that it needs to be very closely reviewed by the two of you as the educational professionals. And Vanessa, you're looking over my shoulder, you're seeing the words. It's I'm furious that this is on our, this is a link. It's a one clicker to our, and our students can access it. And so I think, listen, and when students, our high school students, you confirm that. This, in my opinion, if students want this information, they can get it on their own time. This is not something that belongs in our public library. That's my opinion. I eagerly await to hear what you have to say. I'm just, it is a book that, I don't know how many chapters are in it. I'd have to flip through the whole thing, but the first 6 chapters seem to really focus on and are very helpful to the gay community, but the chapter 7, if a penthouse made it into our library, there would be an uproar. If a Playboy made it into our library, there would be an uproar. And so I just ask you to quickly look at it, and it would have been a much more colorful conversation. Your children are keeping this meeting clean. Mark, I hope I did.
Maybe I should have left them home. I don't know.
A good job keeping it upright, but this content is not okay. And I think all the books that are curated for our students need to be, there needs to be a review, because this isn't okay.
So, Mrs. Rossi and Dr. Beck, if you could look through those and vet them. And while the curriculum doesn't get into the weeds of suggested reading, since it's not part of the curriculum, I'd like to bring it to the agenda for our next curriculum meeting, just to touch base and see where we're at. Thank you.
And also look at the policies surrounding the selection of text for different places.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And we'll trace where it came, where, when, how. it got on.
Before anything is posted on our district website, it has to be approved by yourself, correct? We've been down this road before when stuff's posted on the district website, it had to be taken down because you didn't have permission to post it.
Correct, yeah, that was right off of the website.
So-
This is a bit of an offshoot, because it's its own separate, it's linked on our website.
It's still, I
You're
mean,
still correct,
it's
yes. It's not the
associated
same
with our
exactly, yes.
district, with our kids, regardless of the age.
Yeah.
So, again, this individual didn't ask permission to post these books up there, correct?
I'm not sure when exactly this link and this material was posted.
Neither of you approved it, I'm asking.
Correct, but it's possible it was posted before.
Okay, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
asking, he never came to you to, for permission.
I have to recall, I mean, not recently, the Diversity Council website has existed for a while, and I think it's had links to, like, there's, that reference to librarything.com is what is showing, like, a filter of different books that are populating.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's showing what's available in the libraries, not necessarily making recommendations that you should read them, but here are some titles available. So I have to just go back and investigate it, that at what point, was that developed, and,
Again, I just find it, it's only been a month now, and we're already talking about this individual again, and, there's not much we can do. We're stuck with this guy, unfortunately.
Well,
And
also, he didn't curate these titles, he didn't bring these titles to the district,
he's
and
recommending
they're
them.
not,
He's recommending them for our students to read.
it's a series of what's available in our library that falls under the umbrella of diversity.
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to also add a point. We have had other material fall on our website, not quite like this, but, we had somebody's wedding pictures fall on our website. I think you were here early on in your tenure that happened.
I think that was through an app, through a Twitter feed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying there has been stuff that has landed on our website before that shouldn't be there. And so I'm going to ask the Communications Committee to please review the website. The one thing I noticed, and I've noticed this before, when you link to the Diversity Council, it takes you like it takes you to a different, you're not on our website. Am I correct in?
It's a Google site instead of the Blackboard site, yes.
So, because I don't know, I would think that some of these things would have been flagged for content, just given, like our Go Guardian, but I don't know how that works with Google. So I would ask that the Communications Committee meet and review what's on the website and how it's vetted. I just think it needs a thorough review, because here's an example of books being recommended that if there was some process that had to go through before that book got on there, it would never have gotten on there. And if the Communications Department or Committee needs any help, I'm glad to help.
Okay, thank you.
Going back to what I said earlier about the teachers being uncomfortable, and if the comment that was made, if it is true that a majority of them do feel uncomfortable, can we get a survey of these teachers to get their thoughts and input on it? And if they actually feel that they should be teaching this topic, a topic that parents should be teaching their kids, not teachers. I mean, everyone out there can be teaching what these teachers are going to be teaching.
I mean,
They can't all teach math or history or what have you, but they can all teach their kids what is going to be asked for them to be taught.
Sure, and just to kind of respond to one of those comments, teachers are sharing their feedback on how to develop a curriculum. So part of the decision to make a shared lesson in second grade is about access to materials. It's about completely new content being proposed or being presented at an elementary level in a space that's not a classroom. It's in a gymnasium with boys and girls mixed together in an infused approach. And in having those conversations, and it's not, I think I don't want to give the wrong impression that part of our response and our reaction as professionals to develop something that's a more innovative approach was our response to kind of looking at this content and deciding, like, how do we handle this at second grade? And so that's why you see a shared lesson as an opportunity, as a response to some of those immediate reactions. And so everything that we are proposing is something that we feel comfortable recommending as professionals based on the conversations and the dialogue and the collaboration we've had. And so that's partly why we have things like a shared lesson that we're proposing in this new curriculum.
Has the option been discussed with you and Dr. Beck about not teaching it at all, being that it won't affect the district not teaching it? We're not going to be penalized for it. And we wouldn't be the first. There's multiple districts, even in Sussex County, that's pulled out. We don't have to teach this.
So we do a lot of comparison with our high-performing districts to determine sort of how they're handling things. And I think a big reason why we feel that what we're developing is something that is reasonable for all parties, because aside from what the state is mandating, there are many people who want their children to have exposure to the content that's being developed and implemented inside of the curriculum. So instead of it being an all or nothing, we had a great conversation about masks, that, at the end of the day, it became something that is your choice, and that parents and families shouldn't have that taken away from them. So to collectively refuse or ignore or resist standards that some families feel strongly are important, because our society is evolving and our kids are being exposed to things. Like when they included standards and skills on vaping. It's not just cigarettes or cigars, or it's evolving, it's growing in terms of the needs or the I'll go back to just using the word exposure. What our kids are being exposed to, not through core content standards and curriculum, but unfortunately what they're being exposed to through social media or through the internet. Even if your child doesn't have a cell phone, your child's friend's brother does, and there's a lot of information that kids are gaining access to at much earlier ages. And it's so great to have an engaged family and community presence that want to have involvement, but that's also not always the case. And so for some students, these are the only conversations that are being had that give accurate and like I said, clinically based, scientific and safety-based information. And so to not allow anyone to have access to that doesn't feel like an equitable practice within the district, nor is it something that our high-performing counterparts are deciding on either. So all of these things have been considered, throughout this entire process, and we really feel that, we're able to meet the needs of whatever your family practices, beliefs, values, cultures may be. Our goal isn't to change any of that or be persuasive. Our goal is to provide options for you. And I think so far that's been going really well, and we'll continue to share that.
So what I gathered from that, opting out was never an option.
For teachers, it's never been a conversation.
For the district as a whole.
Oh, is it? Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's been brought up and discussed and talked about. Absolutely. It's been talked about on multiple fronts. It doesn't seem like a wise educational decision for kids. It doesn't provide equity for our student population, or for our community. It takes content away from people who are looking forward to it, who have interest, and that's not a good practice either. That's not listening to the community either. So I think everyone's opinions and everyone's needs can be met based on our approach and our implementation as it currently stands. If you have no desire to participate, you won't be exposed to any of the standards that you feel you have concerns with.
Okay. But the teachers, since you just brought it up again, the teachers will have an option to opt out just like the students?
That's something we haven't discussed.
Yeah.
And if we discuss teachers opting out of something that they feel uncomfortable teaching, then again, where does that stop? So when history teachers have to teach uncomfortable content, and now they want to opt out, it's a professional responsibility to teach the board-approved curriculum and the standards. The discussion never came up yet. So I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking where that could lead to with other subjects and with other topics.
Then again, I mean, math, history, what have you, this is stuff that's been taught for centuries, and it's now this new topic that's being introduced. Never been really taught before. You know, the last place it's been taught is in the home where it should be taught, and now it's something brand new, something teachers might not have signed up for. You know, so I think it's something that
it's a discussion that will be had with teachers that raise that concern.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, they are the professionals that develop the curriculum. So I don't write the curriculum. I support and oversee and provide the structure for, you know, again, best practices in curricular development. But once again, that's how we got to, you know, by brainstorming and thinking outside the box, that's how we got to kind of a solution of a shared lesson in second grade, is by, you know, listening to teacher suggestion. And so they've been a part of this process and have been responsive because they are the experts, honestly, this entire time. So while there are definitely, like, few pieces of the standards that are new, the large majority are not new at all. And the new pieces are either taught, you know, like at a different grade level, you know, so maybe something that was more of a 9th grade standard that is being addressed in 8th grade. But, you know, and so there are new elements, but, you know, collectively, the large majority of what they're teaching hasn't changed. But we'll continue to have those conversations, and we can get a pulse on their feelings, their beliefs, their concerns. But we've been doing that, and they've been advocating on behalf of their department and their peers the entire time.
I think my concern in this, just hearing what you're saying, is that I just wonder with what the community member brought up, with Mrs. Bragg was sharing, is where is that line? I just keep going back to that. Where is the line to where this does not become a safe and healthy learning environment because of exposure to material that we're having to scramble to put this together. I do know there are other high-performing districts that have opted to start it in 2023 to allow more time for curriculum content and review. I do know there's high-performing districts that thought about maybe, you know, truly making it an opt-in for material and content above the 2014 standards, because I just want to, I mean, I guess I want clarification, like the 2014 standards themselves as they exist today are still scientifically based. They're comprehensive, like they cover a lot.
And they cover a lot of the sensitive content that we're talking about, actually. You know, we've always been dealing with sexual health and, you know, the sexual processes and puberty and, you know, the development of humans and
does it cover anal sex?
We've always covered sexually transmitted infections, and now that's an extension of explaining different ways in which sexually transmitted infections can in fact be transmitted, primarily because it's something that kids may not know. So it's not being exposed or implemented as a, you know, like, here are different options for, you know, choices of
So it's not, so that piece is new.
That piece is new, yeah.
Okay.
Specifically directly related to sexually transmitted infections, which is not new.
So you feel, your opinion, you feel teaching these kids in school about anal sex is okay?
So I was an 8th grade teacher for a really long time.
It's a yes or no question.
Yeah, the way it's being handled, yeah.
So you feel
I do think that
anal
it's
sex is
appropriate.
what it is, and
I do think it's appropriate, I feel, for those who would like to participate in that to have that information to safeguard themselves, their decisions, and their choices. I think it's important to keep our kids safe.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to for good of the order. Does anybody have?
This is really, Ms. Hamilton, respectfully, this is not the time for public. We ended that participation. I'm happy to chat after the meeting. No motion was made, nothing happened. It was a comment, so there was no motion, no vote. Okay?
Okay. For the good of the order, anybody?
I was just going to say that my request for immediate removal was really futile, because there's, students at the high school that I'm aware of that would have access to this book.
So I also didn't take that away from the conversation, that it was immediate removal. I took away to review, look at the policies and protocols in terms
Correct.
of,
Correct.
removing
and review the book. And
right.
if you think it's appropriate,
For sure.
you're the educational experts. Run it, you do your thing, run it through committee, and if it rises
Yeah.
to the level,
Follow the policy and the process regarding.
like we have for other books that
Sure.
have come before us. That was my request.
Yeah.
If it was misunderstood, that was not my intention. Thank you. But no, I have nothing for good of the order.
Anybody else? I'd just like to say congratulations to Mr. Miller. I know that he's been such an asset to Alpine, so congratulations. And my kids are sad that they won't be there with you now. Anybody else? All right, no closed session. Adjournment.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, Meredith? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?